Yeah, we're live. Let's see what time it is. Let's see what I got. How close did I get? 7:06. So, what's 6 minutes among friends? First thing you'll notice, first of all, I got to go grab my frosty cold beverage over here. Sure. Thank you, David Freiberger. Somebody quick. First person to tell me what this firing order is for. I don't know. It's smarter, I guess. Cold beverage. So what firing order is this? 18726543. Chevy. Yeah, but what Chevy is it? It's not a small block Chevy, right? No, it's not. Come on, guys. You're better than that. Uncle Squirrel, every time I start reading that name, I keep thinking that Uncle Tony has come on, but he's I think it's still angry about his mystery piston flip. 4723 swap on a, see, that's very good, Aaron. 4723 swap on a small block Chevy or an LS. Yes, LS firing order. That's right. I need to ask David. I think probably for him, because he sells these shirts and he also sells the standard small block one. I think that the standard small block one for David probably sells better, because I think that his guys are probably more likely, traditional small block guys. So, but that's cool. Even though we all know, frosty cold beverage. Jamie, good day. So I'm taking you're from Australia, right? Big block Chevy. That's right. Richard, I can't seem to find any draw through turbo test runs. I haven't made any. No, I have not made a draw through. Maybe the next time I put a turbo up, I'm trying to think if we might be able to do that on an LS. Just try it. Maybe what would be really cool is we'll do it on an LS. Now we'll do it with the GT45, because we do that with everything with that turbo. And what we'll do is maybe I'll do a blow through bonnet on a carbureted deal. What we'll do is we'll replace the carburetor under the bonnet with a throttle body, and then put the draw through on front of it, and then we'll just go to wide open throttle on the carburetor, or we'll make something work. It'll all be good. That's the wrong firing order, right, Tim? I like the 137265548. Yes, the 3800 did need all the bearings, just one. It didn't even finish its meal. It just had one rod bearing, which is unfortunate. It's too bad. Now it seemed like it was a good little motor. It took a lot of abuse. It took we were running like 23 pounds when we had the compound stuff on there, and it might explain why it didn't work. Although guys are running a lot more power than that. So I just think it might have been a bad example to begin with, or there's a lot of reasons it could have happened. Could have stretched a rod bolt or something. Melbourne, Australia. So where's Olivia Newton-John from? Need positive pressure turbo oil seals to run draw throughs. You need those carbon seals, but I honestly think it probably would work anyway for as long as we're going to run it. We probably only need to make a few pulls. I do watch Vice Grip Garage. Yeah, that's good stuff. Missouri's in the house. I'm surprised how much power it made stock with the tune and corn. Yeah, it did good. I actually thought it was a little down on power. I know if who is it, Dean, that comes in here? I think he thinks the same thing. I know, looking back at the data that I was looking at with the 240 horse L67 that we ran, I thought that it was closer to what this thing made. But I was thinking, given the 260 rating, that we would see close to 300 when it was stock. But I because I want to see, you know, we want to get up over 400 with it, which I think will not be a problem. I think the problem is high vacuum, which is under decel. Blower car, what's the most common reason belt will snap? I mean, heavy duty. So you're breaking the belt? Do you have a blow-off valve on it? Yeah, we're definitely going to put together another 3800. I have another L67 junkyard motor. It just was down a couple of cylinders. So what I kind of want to do is take the heads off of that and see what's going on. But I'll probably just go get another L32. You know, once you go L32, you can't go back. Yeah, Tim, I agree. I don't think I think that would be more of a eating the seal longevity problem. I don't know that we would have that problem on the dyno. And there's one way to find out. If we do have a problem, then we have a problem and we got to go put seals under whatever. But it's not hard to, if we configure it for the, like if it's an LS and I put the same single turbo setup that we have on everything else and we try to run it with a carburetor, no harm, no foul. We just reconfigure it and run it as an EFI one, which there's some testing that I want to do anyway. Frankenstein F110 on a 388 twin 7875 or 1102. What is a Frankenstein F110? Is that a cylinder head or an intake manifold? What is it? Let's see. Pertinent information of the injectors is at the port. No need to throttle body before. No, I know we don't. We're not doing a throttle body before the turbo. I was just thinking of replacing the carburetor because I was going to run a carbureted manifold. So I was just thinking about putting a throttle body on the carbureted manifold. And because I was already configuring this in my head with the bonnet that we use on the carburetor, and then we just put the carburetor in front of the turbo. But now I need to get something to mount the turbo. So I need to get one of those old Turbo City mounts or something. Under pressure, I have two 3800s. I have an L67, which I haven't run. The one I've done all the testing on is an L32. When you close the throttle at the end of the pull, it will smoke like crazy. Well, the answer to that, obviously, is we need more wide open throttle. JPL, what size valves are those, and what size should we put in that head? Should we put like a 194 or something? What's the upgrade valve? What's the go-to upgrade valve size for that? I don't even know what the stock valve size is. Will you refresh the existing motor? If you're talking about the 3800, no. Well, the L67, we can probably freshen that one up. The other one's toast. I'm just going to throw away the short block. We need to see the 3.6 LFX or LGX 3800 versus the 3800, 4200. Yeah, it'd be good to run some of those other V6s. Tyler, you need a dandelion brake. Yeah, I'm thinking that 3200, judging by the fact that it had, you know, bad valve seats and stuff. I'm sure it got hot or something at some time in its life. And grab a 3.6 or Penstar. What kind of power should I be able to get out of a 6-liter Speedmaster LS3 heads and 2 GT45s? It's going to be a no prep car. I want to have wide range of power and be able to hit 1500 plus. The 2 GT45s they probably won't go 1500 plus. They probably might do 1500. Salvador, I think this L67 I think is a Series 2. Did they make a Series 1 L67? $212, $224, $520, $536, or $214, $224, $575. Why such a big change in the lift on the intake and exhaust? What are you doing with that, JPL? The 214, 224 with the higher lift is going to make more power. You didn't tell me what the LSAs are on those, but it has 2 more degrees of intake duration, which is the right direction to go for power, and then it has more intake lift. Okay, so you have big Frankenstein heads and you're wanting to make 1,000,000 horsepower. Is that what the question is? I always check the bearings on used motors. I hate to install a blown motor. Yep, I'd never check them. Probably should, right? Have you ever had a motor come across a dyno at West with an 8.3 liter Whipple on it? I don't think I've seen that big one run here. I'd have to ask Steve. Maybe they have on like one of the boat motors or something. 184, 152 is what I have. 180, 50 is what are in my 1900, 184, 180. Okay, a 1900, a 157. Are the JPL? Do you know if the valve lengths are they the same? Are they the same as the LS? Do you call what the ring package was on your 408 Ford? I don't. It came with the pistons that we had in that combination, and now I don't even remember what that stroker kit was. Puppet Master, hit the like button. That's what I like to hear. Now make everybody else do that too. If you can wave your magic like button wand, then that would work out great. Jamie, the firing order swap by itself probably is not going to make any power. I saw a mint Ford or K car. Guy wants $5,000, man. It doesn't say Maserati on it. Did you ever get the twin Torx arm setup running? I have, but not right. I haven't. The thing I want to run it on next is I have it set up to run on a big block. And we did run out of fuel. We ran out of fuel supply from the dyno because of the high pressure. John, thank you very much. 11 minutes late, Mike. You're doing good. 116 LSAs on both. Is that for a supercharged combination, JPL? Let me know. I was busy doing Porsche magic. We were all talking about you, Dan. Find the L3305, 97 engines. They're the best iron heads and outflow L98 heads. Can you do a test with the effect of 100% meth injection plus pump gas versus E85? The E85 is definitely going to make more power. And I honestly don't trust 100% meth injection and pump gas to do the same thing that E85 does. I worry about distribution on meth injection unless it's individual port injection. Trying to find one of your videos on a big block Chevy with a Summit turbo. Did I run the S475, that Summit turbo on a big block? I mean, John, that's 1,000 horsepower turbo, and that T6 from the Summit, because I also have an S475 that's a T4. We have 2 of them that we ran on the Big Bang motor. That T6 with the, I think it's a 136 AR on that Summit, that would be good for a big block, and it's about 1,000 horsepower turbo. It might not quite do that on a big block that's making decent power because it has a lot of displacement. So the back pressure might get high, but maybe not. It might be able to use all the compressor. Well, Dan, we know it wasn't all lies. Should I keep my 305 TPI and do heads or cam, or should I just swap an LS1? Well, the thing about I like tune port motors; they're cool, and you keep them for nostalgia reasons, but you don't for power because they make lots of torque. They just don't make any power because the long runners limit the RPM. If you put an LS in it, it'll be like a world of difference compared to the 305 tune port motor. Mike, hoping to have an answer for you on the 2.2 liter head later this week. Thank you very much. Why would you mix methanol and gasoline? Yeah, I don't. You wouldn't do that as a as a pre-mixture kind of thing, right? Yeah, I don't. We would normally run a mixture. The test that I wanted to do that I was hoping to do before we lost the bearing is I had windshield washer fluid and we had boost juice, and I know a lot of guys have asked me, well, can't I just use the stuff that's $3 or $4 a gallon at the thing? Yeah, you probably can, and I wanted to see what the change in temperature and stuff was. Doing RCL work. Ported Gen 5, extrude hone, intense CNC heads, big tube headers, JE pistons, forged rods, staying M90 intercooled in between. So so you have a ported. So does it have a big throttle body on it too? I hope it does. And what size pulley is on there? Yeah, methanol and nitro, that mix is much better. So you think the valves are the same length? That's good. Test with catalytic converters with and without to see how much they actually rob. We've done stuff like that on the chassis dyno. I don't know if I've ever run them on the engine dyno. I think I tried to one time way back on a 5-liter Mustang application. We were trying to run the full exhaust with the cat pipe and stuff. And I think the problem was the cat pipe that we had. I think the cats were clogged on it. You can make a lot of power through the stock cats, especially later modern ones. Those pellet type things that they ran back in the day were not great. I purchased ABC Delta 853 heads bare, put 205, 157 stainless valves, packed 1219 springs. I don't know what specific ARs are available for that S480. The S480 that we have is Freiburger's, and it was actually designed. It's a T4, so it has a fairly small hot side, relatively speaking. It was designed for a single turbo application on a smaller motor like that. I mean, it still has lots of flow capability, but it has a tightened up hot side, so it wouldn't be the choice for a bigger motor. But they do make S480s in T6s and in bigger T4s. Got a 392 Hemi for swap, only 30,000. Good pump gas. Are you going to take it apart and put, ring gap in it, and are you going to put a cam in it and stuff? Uncle Tony was saying the Hemi is better than the LS. It's certainly not in terms of what the rest of the industry is doing. And I like the Hemi. I think it is really good. It has really good cylinder heads. It's definitely has the power. It's just not done anywhere near the level or the numbers that the LS stuff is. Ring gap, head studs, and cam, all you need inside. Yeah, that's all you need. And then you probably need springs with a cam. Okay, 75 millimeter throttle body. What is there a difference in throttle body size between the L67 and the L32? I know that the throttle body itself is different. I just have not measured them though. Hoping to run, I got a 2.5, a 2.8, and a 3.0. Okay, a 2.5, that's pretty small. On a 2.5, do you have to machine the snout for that? Low boost, big wastegate, or low boost, small wastegate. If you want to run low boost on a turbo that can supply a lot of boost, then you need a big wastegate for control. Because the control from the wastegate is having to evacuate all the exhaust. And that becomes more and more of a problem if you're running low boost and high RPM and stuff. LS408, PRC heads, and an F1X. Well, the F1X can support a given amount of power, so it sounds like your motor will allow you to max out the F1X if you spin it all the way up. 1.65, that's pretty big for an S480. Is that on a T6 or a T4? I'd like to see twin GT35s versus an S480 single. I think well, no, that twin GT35s probably would do what the S480 would. I think twin GT45s, I don't know, they might do 1200. I'm pretty sure the S480 would. 75 millimeter AccuFab LS1 throttle body. Oh, custom adapter, cool. Safe timing for 6 pounds on a blow-through LS93 pump gas. I don't know. I don't know what that number would be because there's a lot of other things that affect that. That's the way to make 500 horsepower NA. If it's 500 horsepower NA flywheel, then the right cam will do that. I've not tried a North Star throttle body on the 3.8. I've not run the Enforcer heads either. Somebody ran a sloppy stage 2 here in an LS on a 6-liter. Does a 2000 Mustang 4.6 have a flat tappet cam? No, they all have rollers. What about a horsepower test on low boost with lots of timing versus high boost with little timing? We could try that, but I think the boost is going to win. What's your opinion on rear mount setups? I have a video up on that on remote stuff, so they definitely work. Why do we need a North Star throttle body? Why can't we use something else if I'm going to make an adapter anyway? I want to adapt up to the 125 millimeter throttle body I have. UPS mech, if you're rebuilding it, I honestly, if you're going to run it, especially if you're going to run an S475, a 6-liter standard displacement or 10 over, whatever you're going to do to rebuild it, will be able to utilize everything that an S475 will do. You'll be able to max that out. You don't have to go up to a 408. Twin 3071s. I've never tried a twin 3071, although I found the little turbo today. I found it's either a GT20 or a GT22. I found it tucked away in a box with my Sprint stuff, and so now now I need to run it on something. $229, $237 at 50, $635, $116 LSA for a Gen 3 Hemi. Yeah, that'll work. The new comp stuff that I've tried on the Hemis is really good too. Yeah, I have a 125 millimeter throttle body from AccuFab. An 8-foot throttle body, that's definitely what you need. Have you ever done a test or have any data on forced induction applications comparing cylinder head valve angles? LS versus small block Chevy, maybe. I think you'd need to worry about it less. And I don't know what you mean by efficiency. I don't know how you're using that word and what you're using to define that. But power output is going to be based on whatever the NA power output is. So if the altered valve angle combination, whatever you're talking about, makes more NA power because of the valve angle of the head, which is certainly possible because the flow rate could be up. A conventional 23-degree head is usually not going to be as good as an 18 or 15 or 13-degree, you know, like a lot of these LS heads and stuff. It's not going to be as efficient, so it's not probably going to make as much NA power. If it doesn't make as much NA power, it's not going to make the boosted power. Can you rebuild a North Star? I'm sure I could. Yellow Terra snout. Okay. I haven't seen another one. Stock snout has to be machined for a 2.8 or lower. Okay. What will it take to run E85 on a 91 Fox Mustang? You have to change the pump. More than likely, you have to change the injectors. And then I don't know if you're still running like a A9L computer or something in that. But you should be able to program that. Mary Jane, I don't have an answer to that, and you may have been asking me this earlier. The TBSS versus the truck at very low speeds, I don't remember running both of those down that low to see which one actually did better. The TBSS definitely makes more power on the top than the standard truck does, but I don't know all the way at the very bottom if the standard truck is better. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do head gaskets in the car. It wasn't a coffee mug size box. SRT10 has 265s. Yeah, that's good. What is a reasonable price way to run an LS? Usually a lot of guys that get the motors get the harness and stuff too. And Matt over at Sloppy has shown guys way to run he has tunes that you can just get for the factory ECU. So that's a pretty cheap way. And he's tested them a bunch of times, so they seem to work pretty well. The 706 heads are good for boost. Every factory head is good for boost. Mike, most guys do a pump for the oil return. New Zealand, yes, RB25 and the 240. I hear you. I know I got my fingers crossed about my 4L60 in my truck because right now I have the Omni GLH on the trailer and I'm taking it home, so I have to go up over some hills. Because you do a video of different types of fuel like methanol and alcohol and what it takes to run them. We normally only run gas and pump gas in E85. I think Freiberger ran methanol and E85 and nitrous on that big block, but I've never run it. What NA test did you plan to run? On which motor? Denmark's in the house. Welcome. I've seen that ProCharger Supercharger. I've never seen one actually running. I only saw the display stuff when we were at PRI. Stock 67 is 67 millimeters. Stock 32 is 68. Oh, so not too much difference then. So are guys cutting the flange off of the blower and then putting bigger throttle bodies, just welding on another plate to make the opening also bigger? Mega Boost Madness, Junkyard 454, you upgrade to aluminum Brodix race right heads. Yes, I remember that, but never upgraded to a higher lift cam. The problem, well, and the lift isn't the problem, Richard. The problem is duration, because we're still stuck with a stock short block. And so that, and then when we go with a bigger valve head, it compounds the problem. So we're limited in the amount of piston to valve clearance we can run, which limits the camshaft that we can run, unless we have a piston that has a valve relief in it. That thing doesn't sound very good. Or I go in and do the super custom Ritchie notching. Would 1.9 rockers be good NA 3800 instead of a cam swap? They're not going to make anywhere near as much power as a cam swap, because they don't do anywhere near the kind of change that a cam swap does. Even this mild cam that we put in is made a big change in power. And the rockers are just going to change the lift of the cam and the duration just a little bit. So Nitro, you put 195 Yellow Terror rockers, and it was hard to tell. Yeah, on a cam like that, like the stock L32 or the L67 cam, it probably would respond to rockers. I would guess you might get 10 or 15 horsepower out of it or something, because it doesn't have nearly enough camshaft. So it's going to respond to what you do. But that's why it responded so well to that cam upgrade. And I think it would be even better if it was a 224 cam. L76 6-liter, getting a 229 244, 112 LSA. You see it pushing through the stock converter, stock auto. It's probably going to soften the power down low. About 10-to-1, 410 pounds of open pressure. Ooh, lashing down the ZL1. Let me know what it does, Jeff. You should try and make the 3800 match the torque curve of a big V8 with progressive nitrous. Do you have that precise a control over nitrous? I think we could just do it with a turbo. Yeah, the 86 302 is not a good choice for camshaft. Somebody tell Far From Stock where on his mobile phone where he can find the like button. Joseph, I don't know if you're going to be happy with the LS9 cam unless you're okay with it being soft down low. And if you're going to put a 3.8 liter or put the this M90 on an LS1 with that much camshaft in it, I don't think you're going to be happy with that. Yeah, Ron, it's too late for that. I just separated the What did we separate? Yeah, I separated the ball joint. I didn't pull the ball joint out of the control arm. We just separated it. But I also undid the I undid it from the strut as well. And the alignment's way off. It's like it has a lazy eye and stuff. MRC, I don't know if the 44 is going to be enough. It might be, but the placement, it really is going to depend on fitment in the engine compartment rather than an optimum placement. You don't want it at a 90-degree angle to the pipe. Ideally, it's directly in the flow of the exhaust, but sometimes you can't do that. .706 is on an LQ9. Yeah, you're going to have some compression there. Oh, you had to click out of live chat to hit the like button? That's kind of not a good design, huh? Is the 4200 testing done? No, it's hardly even started. GT3582 is a good street turbo for a K20. Yeah, although if you're 600 horsepower and less, probably. I'm considering trying some high lift LS. The thing is, the lower the engine speed, the harder it is to gain power with a camshaft. Yep, I'm bringing the Omni home. The LS9 cam would work with the stock converter because it's not going to make any torque. It's a terrible choice on a 4.8. Yeah, the Hemi heads, especially the later stuff, like the ones that are on this 5.3 over here or 5.7 over here, the later stuff flows really, really well. I mean, enough to support, 650 or 700 horsepower just from Dodge. The LS9 cam makes a fairly good amount of peak power. Like if you look at the video that I have up where I tested all the stock cams, it does pretty good. It made pretty stout power on the big end. It's just really soft through most of the curve. We have some AccuFab LS throttle bodies here, and we have a lot of other stock throttle bodies. I have a bunch of because we always take them off before I throw them away. We have the throttle bodies from all the Gen 6 454s also. So we've got a few of those over there that I can run just in case we need a different pattern. We've got a bunch of 5-liter stuff here. And like I said, we have 105s and 90s, 102s, and that 125, which is gigantic. But, if you're going to go, you might as well put a big throttle body on there. What's the smallest top pulley you've run on an 871 or a 1071? An 871 would have been the only one that I've run, and I can't remember what the pulley size was. I've never run a ton of boost on an 871. I don't think I've run more than 12 or 13 pounds. There's a TH475, and the wrecker's here. So you've been out in the wrecking yards, Mark? Yes, we're going to use regrinds from Schneider for the 4200 to start out with. Dan, I don't think a 6.1 head flows more than a 6.4 head, right? It doesn't flow as much as a later 6.4 head. I haven't run the Mercedes V8s on the engine dyno, only on the chassis dyno. What would you recommend for NA, PCV? Do you recommend a catch can? One thing I don't like about the LS engines is they need a lot more crankcase breathing. I was just talking to Ish. We were looking at a setup that they're running a drift car over here, a turbo car, and I like the way that he did his valve covers with, you know, like dash 12 ANs on it going over to a catch can. And I was telling Ish, we need to do that for the dyno, because what I do is I just have an old valve cover that I use that has a big hole in it that we just stick a hose in and a breather, and we just kind of run it to the back of the dyno, because they need more breather. They need way more than they have, even stock. Excuse me. Why do roots blowers have a different boost curve compared to centrifugals? Since they're both being spun by the crank. Yeah, but they're both being spun by the crank, but the relative displacement of the two kinds of blowers, because in a centrifugal blower, it's spinning an impeller like a turbo impeller that's this big or whatever. The rotors in a blower are this long and this big. So for every revolution, they move more air. The problem is that they run out of ability at high speeds. The impeller in the supercharger gets spun up, needs to spin a lot faster. Luckily for it, it's not being driven at a 1-to-1 or even a 2-to-1 ratio like some of the roots blowers are. It's being stepped up like at a 6-to-1 or 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 or 10-to-1 ratio, depending on what the internal step is and then what size pulleys you use on the blower and on the crankshaft. So it's being spun a lot faster, but for it to get to its sweet spot range, it just keeps making more and more boost with higher engine speeds. Roots blowers typically make boost immediately, and then as we saw like with the 3800, in that case, because the motor is so mild, it actually had a rising boost curve also. Oh, the 6.1 intake is supposed to be better than the 6.4. The older 6.1, the SRT8 aluminum intake, I would find that hard to believe, given that the truck intake is almost as good as that, and the Magnum is better in most of the curve than the 6.1. But I've never compared a new 6.4. This 5.7 dual runner intake deal is pretty impressive. I'm thinking of installing a 177 supercharger. What are you installing it on? What motor are you installing it on? Have you ever used a 2-barrel throttle body from a 460 EFI? They will almost fit a Weber IDF manifold for a VW. See, that'd be a good use. The performance valley cover with a breather is the answer too. Yeah, we usually run that as well, open. I have a BMW 135i and N54. Those are good. And I especially like that it's a 135. It's the little one. Yeah, and you're getting CP dish pistons, that will help, but it sounds like you need to get the tune spot on before you can make that turbo work. An M90 in your FRS, that would be a cool combination. If the LS motor have breathing problems as a vacuum, I think a vacuum pump would help a lot. When is the Honda J series that's going to happen? I'll just put that on the list of things that I want to do. Are we going to see a 6.4 Hemi tested? I don't have one. What size turbo should I run on a mild 454? An S475 is good for a 454. Can you do a blow-through conversion video on a Weber carb? I'd like to consider a Paxton 2200 on a high rev 6.3. So you want to do like a stack injection manifold, both Weber carburetors on it, and then blow through that. Parasitic losses between the 3 roots, screw, centrifugal, which is harder to spin at a given boost level, basically speaking. Jason, the roots blower is the least efficient of all of those. The twin screw does very well. It's also positive displacement. The centrifugal is probably the most efficient because it's more like a turbo in terms of parasitic loss. So the roots blower is going to take the most amount of power to drive, and probably then the twin screw, and probably then the centrifugal. I do want to do a J series, but it's just, you know, I have to get other stuff done first. The Ecotech is number one on my list. I've not run an Audi. They've run actually a number of J series here, and going way back because they've been pretty popular for sandrail stuff on the chassis dyno. A 4.6 modular and a 2001 Mustang. You want to make 500 to the wheel? Then it's definitely going to take boost, and a turbo would make the most power and the most average power. 1977 C3 aftermarket cam, unknown mods. I don't know. Somebody was talking about the 8.3 liter Whipple, so that's pretty big. If you got the rings and set up not to blow up, I'll send my 392 for testing. I don't want somebody else's motor. I want my motor. So if I do blow it up, then it's my problem. Is resleeving an LS7 a must for 1,000 horsepower crank? No, I don't think it is. What size pulley on an A&A V3 Ti? 10-1, 120 LSA, 231, 248. If it's an LS7, it could use more camshaft than that. 410, stock head, stock intake, no cats. You could do better to make the NA power output a lot better, like an atomic intake manifold, a cam that's probably, well, I honestly don't know what's going to fit in a stock LS7. I'd have to ask Brian and see if it has similar piston to valve clearance. I don't know about the LS7. That might be all that as close as you can get. But 1,000 horsepower, you could do. It's a V3 Ti. A Ti is just barely going to get there, I think. Calvin hit 544 on his Ford 4200 when he blew the rings the other day. .2 liter J series GTX 3582R turbo on a sandrail, 850 horsepower. That seems like a lot for that size turbo. Do the crankcase evac systems, that's a pan-evac system to the exhaust. I've seen them work, but we wouldn't want to do that because we wouldn't want to blow all the, I wonder if we would be getting oil smoke out the exhaust if we did that. We've tried the pan-evac stuff before. I have to talk to Brulé and find out when he did that. Roots provide the most usable boost. Yeah, an 8100 with a Whipple would be very torquey. The LS7 has thin cylinder walls. Roots blowers are great for drifting. And the roots blowers, when people are talking about roots, a lot of guys, there's kind of two schools of roots guys. There's the old 671, 471, 871, that kind of roots blower. And then there's the modern stuff, which is these M90s, 112s, 122s, all the way up to the 2650s. Those are a different generation, especially the 2650 stuff, is a whole different generation of roots blower compared to these others. And they work very well. Richard, what's a better aftermarket performance, big block Chevy? Would you go aluminum or cast iron? So are you trying to, I mean, it would, whether I was picking an aluminum block, I guess if this is a question, aluminum block or an iron block, it depends on what I wanted to do. I probably would always build an iron one just because I don't want to go through the problems that are associated with having the aluminum block. There are clearance issues and stuff that I don't want to deal with. And having the aluminum block, for me, doesn't justify what I have to go through to make that work. And there's lots of good blocks out there to make the power that you want. Toby, we would just use breathers over into a catch can. Racing stripes give you more power. I know that I painted stripes on my 260Z. If you upgrade to a 1071 and you're making, how much power you're making with your a 565 and an 871, 950. An 871, I think that Freiberger's 871, I think they made 1500. But I can't remember if that was, I think that might have been on the nitrous though. The gear wine is a user's choice. Could a damaged 3800 plastic intake cause oil consumption? Does it have a vacuum leak? I haven't done any EcoBoost stuff. Jason, that makes a lot more sense. Twin GTX 3582Rs can definitely do 850 horsepower. South Florida Nick, we'd love to see a comparison of Roots versus a hybrid Roots TVS. What Roots would you use for that comparison? Because to do an honest comparison of the blowers, they have to be similar size on positive displacement blowers, because that's kind of what's kind of going to dictate things. That's like having the same intake duration, in my opinion. Did I get another 3800 yet? You mean from yesterday? Somebody said that Eaton was working on a 3-liter blower. I can't remember who told me that, but that they ended up not using it. What's your holdup? Yes, it's just that they need to extend the 24-hour day is the problem. Is torque as noticeable as horsepower? Well, really, they're kind of the same thing, and I know people are going to argue with me about that, but if you look at a power curve and you pick an RPM and a horsepower number, it's going to give you a corresponding torque number. But low speed, people generally talk about torque production. Can you put an M90 supercharger on a Ford F-150 V6? That would be a good application for it, but you have to adapt it, so it's not going to be easy. An M122 on an LS, I plan on doing with Tom. He sent me the adapter or intake manifold that I need to put the blower from the, I think from a Shelby on an LS. So it'd be like the low dollar deal I did with the Mac Daddy Parts guys, but with the Shelby blower. Do you think the VS turbos are better than Precision? I don't know how to answer that. I've used both of them, and all the turbos that I've used have worked well. Could you put a GT45 in that blown 3.8 and see how much boost it could make? I already did that. That compound boost video is already up. The M122 isn't enough for a big LS. If you're building it, it'll work for for a few pounds. I think the M122 will make 600 horsepower. A roots blower works good for smoky burnouts. That's for sure. Was the Cadillac an M122 blower? Can we see some more twin turbo stuff and less single stuff? Yeah, I just had to make all of that. Tom, GT500 122 or the 2.3 liter? Okay. I think that I think that Kenny Bill had both of those. Twin turbo stuff for your GT2, yeah. I don't have, unless you want to put junkyard stuff on it. An X5. Jeff, you can always make the Eatons a little bit better than they are, whether it's a 1.9 or a 2.3 or whatever it is, but ultimately a bigger blower is the better way to go. Where did you get the blue cabinets from? I didn't get them. These are Westex. Uh, 3800 plus 122 plus GT45. You just need to get the GT. You just need to get the M122 out of the way. I think a 200 horsepower direct wet shot is safe for a daily driver. Gap rings and I-beam rods. Anything else? Yeah, I think you can run a 200 shot. What, twin M90s? Yeah, twin M90s would work on a V8. An M122 will do 600 of the tire, Tom? It's hard to go too big with a single turbo setup. Yeah, that was the guy, Tim. That was the guy that put the twin M90s on. It was Mike Setar from. He used to be with Magnuson. I don't know if he still is anymore. Scott, the time that I spend down here varies. I don't know who does, because I was going to ask if somebody out there wanted to port one of these Gen 5 blowers for me, but I didn't know who to approach for that. I don't know who out there is doing the porting. My quest is to search for the Holy Grail, right? Are you asking what my favorite color is? Red. I mean blue. Yeah, one of my favorite movies. Or were you going to ask what the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow is? And then I have to ask you whether it's African or European. Score. Personal opinion, what stock Ford transmission would hold up to 1,500 crank horsepower? I don't know. Will the C6 do that? Kong Performance says porting? Okay. An intake manifold for a blown small block 340. You mean for like a 671 for a 340? Does somebody have small block Mopar blown manifolds? So Hot Mess, you've ported a bunch of M62s. That can't be any different than an M90, right? The oil leak can be caused, oil consumption can be caused by a vacuum leak if it's down in the lifter valley. If the leak is in the intake manifold and the leak goes into the lifter valley, then you can consume oil. But I don't know that you should see, if you're going through that and you're burning oil and it's drawing oil into the motor, you should see oil smoke. And it would be probably most prevalent. It'd be easier for you to see at night when you're driving and lights are behind you looking at the smoke. And it should happen, if it's a vacuum leak, it's going to happen under high vacuum, so cruise or hard decel. I don't know about the best turbo controller. We normally use the Turbo Smart one for a manual controller, or we use the TC1 just because we have it. I need to get one from Marty, though. How can I buy a wrong cam t-shirt? There's only a couple of those. I own all of them. I haven't made any more yet. Kevin, have you tested those? Has anybody run a comparison between the series or the Gen 3 M90 on the L67 compared to the Gen 5 blower, like in a back-to-back deal with the same pulley? And I know that you probably would have to swap the intake manifold too to do that, but I think the intake manifolds are probably pretty comparable. So has anybody tested that to see how much better the Gen 5 blower is? Yeah, those gaskets, if they break, Dan, on the L31s would definitely suck oil in. How much PD supercharged boost would be safe on 93 and a 9-to-1 motor? Is it what size motor is it? How much does the car weigh? What's the timing? Is it intercooled? How big is too big for intercooler? Intercooler sizing, when you start talking about big, is usually a fitment issue for fitting it up front. You don't want it to restrict all the airflow into your radiator, which is not good. And there's not a too big thing if you're talking about, oh, is it going to create lag or anything, because we did that test. Oh, the Mad Max cars are coming up for auction? Cool. Have you tested 4-pattern cams on a big block Chevy with a tunnel ram or other manifold with equal length runners? Wondering if big block Chevy heads can take advantage of them as the inner runners are shorter. They're doing that mostly for intake manifolds. And the change in runner length for the big blocks is not dramatic, not nearly as dramatic as the change in the intake manifold runner length. And the 4-pattern cams are not the answer to that. with an intercooler, ambient temperatures around 90 Fahrenheit. I don't know what, there's not a boost level because it's a boost and timing thing. So you only run three degrees of timing, you probably run a lot of boost. I got to answer your transmission question. That's not, maybe somebody else here can. I don't know what, a 1500 horsepower transmission is going to be a really expensive deal. The Turbo 400 stuff is usually the go-to stuff for, because there's so many parts available for it to make it withstand that kind of power level. Yeah, the Can-Am cars did that a lot for fitment, and maybe they were trying to stack them to alter the length of, but the change that they were changing the stack lengths, I thought that was for fitment, but they were changing the stack length maybe because of the head port, but the amount that they were changing the stack length was much more than the change in the runner length from the cylinder head, though. Not a turbo question, but what does it make racing engines? Well, what kind of racing engine? The ones that are really snappy and responsive have low reciprocating weight. They usually have high compression. They're usually very powerful motors. Demon Tech VW TDI intercoolers were causing a no start issue because they were too big. The air being cooled was condensing inside and freezing, therefore is blocking airflow. How is air freezing inside the intercooler? How does the air get to be below zero if the ambient is well above zero? Pertinent. I don't prefer either one of those. That's not a question. It's not lift versus duration thing. You pick the cam that gives you the power curve that you want, and then you add boost to that. That's how I do it. So this is when the ambient outside air was below zero then, right? Or below freezing. And there was just water in there. But that situation is not an intercooler sizing problem, is it? I don't know about the steam vent ports. We just plug them when we run them on the dyno. and maybe I should bleed them. How much horsepower are you seeing with a crate LSX turbocharged? I don't know what crate engine you're talking about because there's lots of different ones. The most power I've done are the big bang things that were junkyard motors. I've never seen any more than that on any crate motor. The GT45 is a good intermediate step between because a lot of guys don't want or need 1,000 horsepower. They're good for guys that want to run 5 or 10 pounds or whatever on their LS and drive it around. Mess sprayed before the intercooler. So now we're adding another variable to what the discussion was. I thought that the discussion was about intercooler sizing. So now we're spraying water meth before the cooler. VW determined the intercoolers were too efficient with their smaller diesel cars. Camshaft recommendation for a stock. The cam that we ran in the Magnum test, if you look at that video, that's up there. That's a pretty good small cam. Something in the 250, high 250s, low 260s advertised as a good one. And then I maybe try a little tighter LSA than the one that we ran. I think that the guys from UT Awesome have cams that are like that. As a matter of fact, I think that they sent one that we're going to be testing here very, very quickly. I thought that the bell housing was the same on the 2.2 and the later 2.4. I could be mistaken about that. It would be easier to swap the engine than swap the heads. Flat plane crank versus cross plane. LS, I'm never going to do a flat plane crank unless it came in the motor already. What do you think of turbo kits that drain through the oil filler cap? I've done that, but I've done that because my turbo was positioned above the level of the valve cover, so it just made it easy for me to drill a hole in. No, that's good information about the VW, but I think that the problem is not. I just don't know if I agree with the fact that it's too big, that the sizing was wrong on it. Yeah, and if the 2.2 and the 2.4 have only 1 bolt difference, I mean, we run our LSs on a small block Chevy bell housing because they're only a little bit different. Yeah, we don't care about the starter on the dyno because we have a starter for the dyno, so we don't have to mount that. Yeah, Dan, flat plane cranks only work if you turn the pistons around and use either spark plugs. Teflon strips. I think Freiberger's motor is a stripped blower, and they do that so the tolerances are really close and tight so that they make more boost and they move more air. The problem is the strips will eventually wear, and then they won't work as well, and then the performance will go away. But for racing setups, that's typically what they do. Why do auto manufacturers lack the same horsepower per liter as a sport bike? Their power needs are not the same as a sport bike. There's specific output, and a specific output is a lot easier to achieve on a smaller displacement motor than it is on a bigger displacement motor, relatively speaking. The bike performance world is a little different than the car performance world. What they're trying to do is, you're not going to see Corvette. Okay, Corvette, we need to make 1,000 horsepower, let's say. That's not a thing. They don't need to do that. I'm not knocking flat plane cranks. I own a car that has one, but I'm just saying I'm not going to build an LS with a flat plane crank to put it up on the dyno. That's not going to happen. The flat plane crank is going to rev higher and better than other stuff. It just sounds different and it vibrates like a mother. Why cathedral ports on a big bang? Because the head's not holding back the power potential of the motor, and because cathedral port heads are way better than every other head ever made. Yes, the non-PI short block on the 4.6 with PI heads on it will have more compression than either one of those standard ones. Cathedrals are better than rec ports. Again, that's another argument that you don't need to have. It's ridiculous. It's like every other argument. I don't know why people have to have absolute stuff like that. Can you make power with it? That's what you should be looking at. Like, what can I make power at? I can tell you that from a stock standpoint, the best or the most powerful stock LS head is not a cathedral port. It definitely is a rec port head. But there are ported cathedral port heads that are a lot better and make more power than a ported rec port head. And also to take it, and then people say, well, why didn't you run a ported rec port head? Well, the reason is because the rec port head is already too big for most of the things that we do. You need a really big motor to take advantage of what a ported rec port head has to offer, as we showed in all the testing that I did. Cathedral port head in ported form, any of the aftermarket things, will support the power level that most people use, and they make more average power than a rec port head does too. So if you can achieve the thing that you need to achieve, and as it turns out, if guys are putting turbos on these anyway, which most guys are, you don't need ported heads. So you might as well just use the head that offers the most turbo response, and that's a cathedral port head. Did you ever get more than 6 or 7? I never ran more than that, but we could definitely make more than that. When there are no rules, round ports win every time. The Roval ones. Yeah, the air doesn't really care. If you need to make a certain amount of power, and then you pick the head that flows enough to make that kind of power, you've succeeded. Yeah, I was watching the dimpled head test Eric did. Do the cast heads handle heat better than aluminum heads? It's probably the opposite of that. No one expects the cathedral port inquisition. There's no need for aftermarket LS heads. That's not true. we need aftermarket heads because they have thicker decks, if nothing else. I don't know Ford's reasoning for going with the modular program. What do we need to do to the combustion engine? Lots and lots of boost. Okay, 2 more minutes. Gen 4, 5.3, shooting for 800 horsepower. What size air-to-air would be optimal? I don't know. It's going to be like about this big and about this tall, about 3 or 4 inches thick, probably. Again, it's going to be what fits in your car. When do I sleep? I'll let you know. Did any of the Big Bang heads lift, any Big Bang motors lift the heads? No, I don't think they did. We used aftermarket heads on several of them. I think the first one had ported 706 heads, but it was only at 1,200 horsepower, though. It was a really small gap. Is that what you're saying? It was factory gap. At what point are ARP studs necessary? Apparently, they might have been necessary on my my 3800, but they're not necessary on an LS because you're going to break. Not necessary on a stock bottom end LS because you're going to break the rod before you break the bolt. If you can try flat top pistons with boost in E85 on your 2.2 or 2.5, you will not be disappointed. More compression, is it going to make more power? That's what you're saying? I think we got a pretty good idea that that's going to happen. Okay, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up. Time to go. Got so much, so little time, so much to do. Can a 3800 make 400 horsepower on a stock rod bolt? Yes, I'm sure they can. Apparently, I can't, but I think that they can. Thanks for showing up, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow.